Now that we have the powerful fundamental theorem of calculus and integration by parts in our toolkit, let's apply these to get another form of the remainder term in Taylor's theorem. So what I will do is I will just sketch the argument and leave it to you to formulate a precise statement of Taylor's theorem with the integral form of remainder in the exercises. So let's begin with the hypothesis. So let f be a function that is c k plus 1 in the interval AB. Okay, now choose x in AB and h in R such that x plus h is also an element of AB. Okay, for simplicity, this is the sketchy part. For simplicity, take x to be 0 and h greater than 0. This is not really, the argument that is about to follow does not crucially depend on these hypotheses, but the notation will become significantly simpler. Okay, now what we are about to do is to derive the value of f at the point h in terms of the value of f at the point 0. That's the aim. Now, first of all, the fundamental theorem of calculus immediately gives that f of h is f of 0 plus integral 0 to h f prime of t dt. Right? This is just the fundamental theorem of calculus. Okay. Now I'm going to apply the fundamental theorem of calculus yet again to get the expression 0 to h f prime of t dt into a new form. What I'm going to do is I'm going to first revert back using a time machine back to high school notation. I'm going to take u to be f prime of t and v to be t minus h. Note h is a constant. Okay, take u to be f prime of t and v to be t minus h. Now integration by parts gives that this is nothing but uv, which is f prime of t minus h with the limits 0 to h minus integral v du 0 to h t minus h times f double prime of t dt. Okay, this is just your standard integration by parts, even applied with the standard notation that you are familiar with from high school. Now let's see what happens. This you will get the first term, you will get f prime of t into h minus h minus f prime of t into 0 minus h. And if you don't mind this minus sign, I'll make it a plus sign and write 0 to h minus t f double prime of t dt. Okay, so I've done nothing, I've just taken the minus sign inside. Now observe that there is a minus sign near minus f prime of t 0 minus h, and there's a minus sign inside, so this whole thing just becomes f prime of t into h, sorry, f prime of 0, sorry about that, this should be f prime of h and this should be f prime of 0. I forgot to substitute the limits for f prime. So this will just give you f prime of 0 plus integral 0 to h minus t into f double prime of t dt. So far so good. So the original expression which I bring back here will just give us f of h is equal to f of 0. Wait a second, I forgot to put a h here. Okay, so you will get f of h is f of 0 plus f prime 0 h plus integral 0 to h minus t f double prime t dt. Okay, so we have got some sort of approximation of f of h. Note that this is a Taylor polynomial. This is a Taylor polynomial. Okay, and this is the remainder. This is the remainder. Okay, now what do you do? Well, we can repeat this argument one other step. Look at 0 to h minus t, f double prime of t dt. Look at this term. Okay, now what you do is set u to be f double prime of t and v to be h minus t squared by 2. H minus t squared by 2. In fact, put a negative sign. Put a negative sign simply because when you differentiate h minus t the whole squared by 2, you will get 2 into h minus t into minus 1. So I want to get rid of that. Okay. Now again apply integration by parts. What you will get is uv, that is f double prime of t minus sine h minus t the whole squared by 2, and the limits are again 0 to h minus integral 0 to h v du, which is minus h minus t the whole squared by 2 into f triple prime of t dt, and these two minus signs just go away on its own. No need to do any additional work. Okay. So what about the first term? We'll have to substitute the limits again. So you will get that when you substitute h, it will disappear. When you substitute 0, there is again a negative sign, and that will get cancelled with the negative sign outside. So this whole thing will become f double prime t into h minus t, h squared, t, h squared by 2 plus integral 0 to h minus t the whole squared by 2 f triple prime of t dt. Okay, so the original expression will become f of h is f of 0 plus f prime of h plus, again I made a mistake here, this is f double prime of h plus f double prime of h squared by 2 plus 0 to h minus t the whole squared by 2 f triple prime of t dt. Excellent, excellent. Repeating this argument, you can get that f of h is, so repeating, f of h is equal to f of 0 plus h f prime of 0 plus dot 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 h bar k by k factorial f kth derivative at 0 plus rk of x. And what is this rk of x? Rk of h. It's a function of h. Rk of h. And what is this rk of h? It's 0 to h minus t the whole power k by k factorial f k plus 1th derivative of t dt. So we have got a different form of the remainder by repeatedly applying integration by parts, in a sense by repeatedly applying the fundamental theorem of calculus. Now you might ask that this application of integration by parts to get this remainder term seems like a lot of effort, ugly computation. I mean, I personally think this argument is quite beautiful, but as you notice, I myself made several simple mistakes. So working this out in detail, you might think it's ugly. Why to do that? The previous argument was far more transparent, whatnot. The remainder term, which involved just repeated application of mean value theorem, which we have seen before. Now there is a big advantage of this particular expression. The big advantage is that there is no unknown point in between 0 and h that is involved in the remainder term. If you recall that the earlier Lagrange form of the remainder that we had got involved an unknown quantity which we cannot possibly determine, right? Whereas this is an integral which it is more tractable. For instance, a simple example, suppose you're trying to write down the series for sin x or cos x, which we will do just a few modules down the line. Observe that we already know that the derivative of sin x is cos x and the derivative of cos x is minus sin x. So in some sense, we actually know what this fk plus 1 of t is going to be in that scenario. We know the exact function, and it might be useful to have an expression like this. Whereas the Lagrange form of the remainder, when you're trying to write down the series for sin x or cos x, will involve a term which cannot possibly be fully determined because it will involve a point in between 0 and h. Now, both forms have their advantages and disadvantages, which we will explore in great detail when we start studying power series and try to show convergence of certain power series involving sine, cosine, and so on. This is a course on real analysis, and you've just watched the module on Taylor series with integral form of the remainder.